Welcome to the Nourishing Africa Instagram Live. We'll start in a minute, but while we're waiting for Siyabonga Mngoma, who is the CEO and founder of Abundance Wholesale Foods, please give us a moment for her to log on. Welcome to the Nourishing Africa Instagram Live series titled Entrepreneurs Nourishing Africa. Today we'll be joined by Siyabonga Mngoma, who is the founder and CEO of Abundance Wholesale Foods. And before we start, or while we're waiting for her to join, we will just give you an overview of what we want to do here and what Nourishing Africa is all about. So Nourishing Africa is a digital platform solely aimed to help entrepreneurs and agripreneurs in particular scale their businesses across the continent. And we do this through various programs and segments such as this one, as well as various programs on the Nourishing Africa Hub. So if you go to www.nourishingafrica.com, you'll be able to see many of the opportunities, resources, and tools we provide, such as access to funding opportunities, tools and data, as well as resources on the hub. So we would love Siyabonga to join us. If you would just send us a request to join the live, and we'd be more than happy to have you on board. Just to give you an overview of this segment in particular, what we are doing through our various online platforms and social media channels is highlighting the work that these brilliant entrepreneurs are doing across the continent. You may know that we have a range of local, indigenous to African entrepreneurs and agribusinesses that are doing incredible work, and we think that it's important that we highlight this this opportunity and showcase the work that they're doing across the continent. So each week, which fluctuates between Twitter and Instagram, we have Twitter chats with entrepreneurs as well as Instagram live sessions with these agripreneurs. And today, as I said earlier, we'll be joined by Siyabonga Mngoma, who is the founder and CEO of Abundance Wholesale Foods, located in South Africa. We'll just wait for her to join online, but while we're waiting, please comment in the comment section below. Tell us about where you are, what you do, how you're involved in the sector, and if you're not, what makes you enthusiastic about the agriculture and food landscape on the continent. And then Siyabonga, if you're online, please request to join the session, and we'd be happy to have you on board and start the conversation. While we wait, I'm just going to give you an overview of some of the upcoming events that Nourishing Africa is hosting, and some of the segments that we have online that we'd love for you to participate in. The first is the Ask an Expert segment. So each week we have, it seems that Siyabonga is having issues connecting, so we'll try and rectify this. My colleague Laya will also be on board to try and see how we can make this work. Nonetheless, wonderful. Hi.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Just got challenged a bit there with technology.
Great. And we're so excited to hear more about your entrepreneurial journey and what you've been doing in this space. But before we start, we'd love for you to introduce yourself and tell us more about Abundance Wholesome Foods.
Thank you very much. Abundance Wholesome Foods is a home delivery service that is based in Johannesburg CBD. So we've been in operation for a couple of years now, and the service that we offer is fresh produce that is grown using traditional farming methods. We provide organic fresh vegetables and herbs, and we deliver these to people's homes and their offices around the Johannesburg area.
Lovely. And when did you start up, and what made you decide that this was something that you wanted to embark on?
So It was a personal motivation for me. So my family has a history of diabetes and cardiovascular diseases. So from a very early stage, I was very aware of the risk that I have. And for a long time, I wasn't sure to find ways of making sure that I try and avoid getting sick. And I just stumbled upon the word food security. And when I delved into that, I found ways of growing food until I got to find out about food as medicine. And I think when I found that out, I thought this is something worth sharing with my community. And that is how Abundance Wholesome Foods was created, to make sure that a whole lot of people are aware of how they can use food to heal their bodies.
This is brilliant. And this leads into the second question, which is about building efficient food systems and educating more people on nutrition and health in South Africa. How do you think your business has helped in this space?
So I think abundance is part of the contribution into building efficient food systems. So what we have done, we operate on a 150-kilometer radius, and that is between us, where we operate in the Johannesburg CBD, and that is including our small-scale farmers around the city, as well as the customers that we deliver to. So we have intentionally went out to find suppliers who are using organic growing methods and who are close to us. So by that, we want to contribute to the food system. So if we deliver in that radius, we believe that is a big contribution. It is not an easy thing. We're all looking for efficient food systems, but I think we're in the right direction to start.
Right. And even with you saying that you go through or you distribute within a 150-kilometer radius, which is quite large, how have you been able to, or what are the challenges that you've seen, particularly during this COVID-19 period, and how have you been able to overcome it, given that you actually distribute to such a far-ranging circumference?
So actually our delivery is within 25 kilometers currently, but including our suppliers, that now further reaches the 150-kilometer mark. But during the COVID-19 pandemic, the challenge that we've had is on the supply chain. So South Africa went into lockdown at the end of March, and that disrupted a couple of our farmers who are very close to us in distance. So when that disruption happened, actually one of the farms had to close down, and it was one of the farms that we were very reliant on. But we have been lucky because we are part of a network of growers that are in Johannesburg. So when this happened, we had to now go back to that network and try and tap into that. Even though it has meant that we have a bigger, we have to travel far, but it has helped us that we still deliver the service that we've committed to, so the customers are assured that they will still get their service. And also there has been very minimal disruption in our operations because of the network that we have had before, which now we had to tap into during the pandemic.
And can you give us more insight into the network? How does it operate? How did you get to know about it? How did you become part of it?
So the network, it's called a participatory guarantee system, PGS. It's a localized growing system that is practiced by organic growers. It is a global network, but it's also like it gets localized in certain areas or in certain countries. So in South Africa, we have PGS South Africa, and then we have PGS Johannesburg, where I'm based. So it is a network of small-scale farmers who practice organic farming, and it also it has retailers, people like us who buy from the small-scale farmers and sell to the end user, the customer. Then it has other interested parties, so members of the community are also part of this network. And what this network does, annually they visit each farm to audit, to see how they grow their crops. So they look at things like then pesticides, how they deal with the issue of pesticides at the farm. They look at issues of employment. Is it a fair employment space for the workers at the farm? It looks at their wages, and it looks at a whole lot of different elements that makes up a farm that is growing food without using chemicals, and it's usually small-scale farmers. So there is one of those here in Johannesburg, and before I even started the business, I became a member of this network, and it has been a very, very it's been a very good relationship to have for our business. For example, now during this time, we've had to go back and make sure that we try and resuscitate the relationships.
We definitely need more of those kinds of networks across the continent. But to shift gears slightly, I want to discuss a little bit about your blog. You also blog about food and agriculture, and I'd love to know how that started, what made you decide that this was something that you also wanted to do, and why do you do it? Why are you passionate about this?
So actually the blog, it was a very last minute addition to our business model. So when we started and we were ready to launch, it was just towards the end of the winter season. And during that time, there isn't much crop that is available. So during one of brainstorming discussions with my business coach, she mentioned a blog, because what we were trying to do as Abundance, even though we were trying to bring access to organically grown foods, we also wanted to have an educational element where we talk about organic food, we talk about the benefits, what it is, and just try and spread the word about food as a healing agent. So yeah, so when she mentioned a blog, and that seemed like a way to start, which was also in line with our model, which was a digital, which is online. So the next thing was a blog, and that's how we started. So even before we could deliver vegetables, we had a blog. We started with a blog.
Wonderful. And how has it been received? Do you find that people are asking more about your blog? Do you find that people are more tuned in as a result of it being added to the services? Because it is quite a unique service to add to something such as what you're currently doing.
So I must tell you, I think for a year, I was convinced that no one is reading our blog. But I think one of the things about business, it's consistency. So I think over time, we've seen an increase into subscribers into our blog. So now we're starting to see once in a while that we'll get responses, we'll get questions, and we starting to get engagement. So 18 months later, engagement is starting. But if you look at the figures in terms of the numbers, where if people do open and read, yes, people do read our blog. It's just that we don't have as much engagement as we would love.
Okay, so then we employ people to go onto your website. Can you give them your website right now so that they can go on and read it and learn more about what's going on in our ecosystem?
So our blog is part of our website, which is also an online store, and you can reach us on abundancewholesomefoods.co.za.
Wonderful. And we also ask that people, if you have questions, please write them in. We'll get to them through this segment and through this Instagram live. But to ask another key question to you is that oftentimes African food and what we eat and how we create it and prepare it is often looked down upon or not recognized for all its might. And in your opinion, what can we do to change this narrative, and how can we be more appreciative of our food heritage and culture?
You know what, that is a very important question, and it's a very critical element in this sector. So a lot of us have ignored our heritage or indigenous foods, but I believe that, you know what, it's one of those things that we have to be conscious about. So, and it also needs a collective voice from farmers who will grow these kind of foods. Even though sometimes you find these kinds of food on the side of the road, they just grow wild everywhere. But from farmers to the suppliers, people who bring access to certain foods, as well as chefs and restaurants, I believe currently we're up against big multinational corporations who are in the food industry. So there is a very close link between the consumers and the chefs. So what they take out of their kitchens, it needs to incorporate indigenous foods. Then you can have people who blog about food, who will talk more often every day about indigenous foods. And then I think when people start seeing these foods in restaurants, because it is easier now to go to a restaurant than to go to a farm or a farmer's market, especially in South Africa. We don't have a lot of farmers markets, but we go to restaurants a lot. So when people start seeing these foods in restaurants, then it will help us to change the narrative. And another good thing is that when people taste the foods, their childhood foods, it definitely brings a reconnection. So it's just a work of coming together between farmers, bloggers, and anybody who will talk about indigenous foods or heritage foods to restaurants and chefs. And we need to raise our voices around that.
Totally agree. So we have some questions that have been asked by the wonderful people watching. And the first one is from Sonia, who asks, how does digital marketing approaches enhance your product sales and awareness of your business?
So please repeat.
Sorry, she said, how does digital marketing approaches enhance your product sales and awareness of your business?
So most of our sales and every pitch we do, it's through digital platforms. So when we started, we were very aware because we were building an online store and we had to be all over online. So we use not all, but most of the social media platforms. We are there, and that is what helps us. And we do most of our marketing and advertising in the digital and social media space. So we've had to make sure that we are available, or we are there in social media. So we are in most platforms. And one of the biggest things for us was to be consistent. So in some cases, even before we started selling to a few customers, when we had one customer, we still had content on all those spaces. So we never stopped thinking, okay, nobody is buying from us. So consistency was one of the approaches in our digital marketing strategy. And then, sorry, what was the second question?
And the second part to that question was, How has it brought awareness to your business?
So I think also what we have tried to do with the digital and social media platforms, because of consistency again, that has made people be aware. So we kept popping up in people's timelines, and we do boost our posts. So we spend money to be online and have our name coming up on people's timelines. And it was a very long journey. It also took us a very long time. But what it did for us more than anything, it sort of built a perception or an awareness that we are a serious company. We are a company that is there to stay. We're not just here today and we are not going to be there tomorrow. So when we meet people, they ask about how many employees do we have? And, you know, we get questions like we are a very big company, but because of what we have done on the digital platforms, it has created what we were aiming for. And now we do look like a very big company and we look professional and we have well thought content. And I think that is the best or the important element as well, to make sure that your content is well thought. So we work with somebody who helps us with content, because sometimes it's not easy to wake up every day and do the business operations and still be able to take care of your digital platforms. So we have a dedicated person who looks after those platforms for us.
That's wonderful. And we have a question from Joa, who is a student in Cape Town, and said that he has 6 other friends, including him, that want to engage in tomato farming. How can he find help in starting this? How can he find funding or opportunities? Can you just give him a little bit of guidance, just based on your experience, as to how do they go ahead and try and be involved in this space?
Yeah. So I think what is important, or what maybe we not get told when we have these dreams of getting into entrepreneurship, is that in most cases you are on your own with your friends and family. So to get started, you just need to have your own resources. It's very difficult to find somebody to believe in your dream when you don't have anything to show. So I would say to them, they need to do their research and they need to be clear who their customer is, because it's sometimes easy to get a farm and you start growing stuff, but if you don't have somebody who's going to buy and they buy at the right price that you've agreed upon, then it's a waste of time. So I would say just do your research, find out how the tomato industry is doing. For example, tomatoes don't do well in winter, so it's not a very good winter crop. But if you want to grow maybe tomatoes throughout the year, you may need tunnels. So those kind of things you need to find out. So if you're growing them seasonally, also find out what other crops you can have that will make sure that your business continues when your major crop is not in it's not growing or it's not in season. But I think a lot of research and making contacts with people who are already in the industry. Follow those people now on digital platforms. It's now, the information is out there. So follow those people, and if you know somebody who is doing what you want to do, visit them. Surprisingly, it is people are very willing with information. So, and people are very happy to talk about their successes or their businesses, whatever they're involved in. So if you identify somebody that is already in that space and you think it's something that you aspire to, make contact with those people and visit them and see what they're doing.
Well, that's great advice. Another question we had from Sonia was, what are some of the procedures you did to register your business in your country, particularly as an online company?
So to register a company, we actually have an agency, a government agency that is part of registering all businesses. But with as an online business, it was a matter of finding a service provider, an internet service provider, and then you have an account with them, and also finding a very reputable and reliable person who's going to manage your website. So we don't manage our websites ourselves or myself, but we also have somebody who is reliable, who's been with us since we started. So the process is just finding the service provider and having your own resource in terms of making sure that your website is always live and there's no downtime.
Okay. And then we had a question from Crayberry, who was asking she just joined in, and just to let her know that we will have this session saved on our Instagram platform, so you can always come back and rewatch it, and to get the key takeaways based on the content that Siyabonga has so brilliantly shared with us today. And the last question before we wrap up: from your point of view, what advice or what words of wisdom would you have for entrepreneurs in this sector?
Wow, this is a very tricky and not so easy sector. So I think I would say it's very important to have a strong motivation why you are joining this sector. And I think that is something you'll find yourself going back to, especially in the maybe first 2 years. Okay, we're like almost 2 years. So, but we constantly go back why we're here, because it gets very difficult. And if you don't have a strong motivation, it's easy to just to let go, because it seems like a very impossible dream. But also another advice I would give is for people to do research. I mean, it's something that sometimes we take very easy, but market research is very, very important. And I know we get told this all the time, but it is true. Do your market research, know who your customer is, know how much they're willing to pay for your product. And because you may have a brilliant product, but if people think, I'm not going to pay for it, it's great, but I'm not going to pay for it, then you don't have a business. So do your market research. And finally, I would say relationships, networks. Those are very, very important. Sometimes when you are starting out, you are funding the business yourself, you will call on friends, you'll call on family and certain networks. So, and those are the people who will be very honest with you. Those are the people sometimes who have been in the journey before you. So they have the knowledge, they have the experience. So to create and build those networks and relationships, and also make sure that you nurture those relationships, I think it's a good start for any business if they focus on those.
Definitely. I want to thank you very much for joining us, Siyabonga, the CEO and founder of Abundant Wholesome Foods, based in South Africa in Johannesburg. And to all of our viewers and listeners, this will be available on our Nourishing Africa IG story to watch back when you have free time, as well as we will tag Abundant Wholesome Foods so that you can go look at their sites, go through their blog and what they have to offer. And if you're in South Africa and if you're in Johannesburg in particular, please look them up. We look forward to watching them grow, and we are behind you 1,000%. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you very much, Nourish Africa, for having us.
Great. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. You too. Bye. Thank you.